So today is Wednesday, the 29th of July, our second intensive equivalent Zoom session for EDU101 401, term 3, 2020. Okay, I hope you saw my messages since yesterday. Let's start with the pedagogy definition. You saw that? Can I see some thumbs? Yeah, you did. I told you yesterday I thought there was an idea of walking in the word pedagogy, and when I first went and had a check on it this morning, and it wasn't there. But then I read a bit further and got the idea of a slave bringing a child to be taught. And so I must have remembered that from way, way back, and not focused on the child so much, head, but the fact of the child being brought to the place for learning. And I think that is a worthy thought to reflect on, because in a sense you are not bringing the children into your classroom, but you're in a culture, in an organization that brings them, and you are participating with parents who bring them and bring them to you. And I think because of that bringing to you, there's therefore a responsibility on your shoulders to teach, and not to be afraid of the facts, not to put yourself down, but you do have an incredibly high calling as a teacher. And boy, slaves are bringing young people to you to be taught. Therefore, wow, that is an awesome responsibility. I mean, and as I look at this incredible screen today, what a responsibility I've got now to be teaching teachers who will teach thousands of children. Awesome, absolutely awesome. Anyway, while I find my place, I'd like you to go to the PowerPoint number 1 and page 3. So allow me to make a few clicks and get myself there. If you're not there, please, you can probably share what I'm sharing on the screen, but on Jim, we are. So share screen, and here and here. Okay, so I hope you can see the last page of PowerPoint 1. Yeah? Yes. A guy with a bald head jumping in the sea, as it happens, the east coast of Sydney, and he's the principal of Claremont Christian College, and he's having a ball with the kids from his school. Anyway, that's the end. No, is it the end? I think yeah, that's the end of that first one. If I could take you back to page 3, and we launch off there. Yesterday we were beginning to chat about the term pedagogy, and I wanted to go back there for a moment, in particular this line here. Pedagogy is a belief that all children can learn, and it is the duty of the adult to participate in the growth and development, in their growth and development. This whole notion of the relationship you have with the child or the young person, I think that is a lovely definition, although, as I said yesterday, it's incredibly hard to define what is pedagogy. But it's something that you're going to wrestle with, and I think that even when you're as old as me or older, you still won't know what pedagogy is. It's something it's intangible. You can't touch it. If you touch it too hard, it'll go cold and die. It's got to be alive. In very simple terms, the art and science or profession of teaching, but that is so weak, but it's true. So I just encourage you with that point, page 3. Nip to page 4. I wanted to spend a minute on page 4. Look down here. Where are we? A fact cannot come. Where I've lost that now. A fact can't come. Yeah. Unless, yeah. There are cases when a fact cannot come unless there is a preliminary faith for it to exist. Now, get hold of that phrase. A fact can't come into existence unless there's a preliminary faith for its existence. In other words, a seedbed for it to reside in. Now, talk to me, folks. I'm going to come off screen sharing so that I can see more of you. I reckon the majority of people out there walking the streets or at home see facts as absolute, undisputed, objective fact. It's a reality, just as the table is, the chair is, it's a fact. And what you teach in school, of course, is just facts. You're totally unbiased, neither right nor left, not down, you're dead down the middle, aren't you? Not.
No, I don't think so.
Andrew.
I think you come into the classroom with you've always got preconceived ideas. You've always got your morality, for example, is all what you bring into the classroom, which you try and convey. I don't think it's always going to be neutral.
No. Now, what about, Andrew, can I push you a bit more? The idea that the fact isn't there. It doesn't exist if you don't have a faith basis for it to exist. So what I'm saying is, I'm wondering, are you teaching fact and acknowledging that the children in front of you have a faith base? Or are you even involved in bringing them to faith so that they can put the facts into their faith base?
Right. I think it's a combination, because children will be modeled at home by their parents. They're going to come in with something. You bring in something and try to merge it with them and show them basically where there are holes in their logic, or where you try to fill that for them. So it's got to be a bit of both. You're coming in with nothing, with your faith, but you don't assume that they have got no faith.
Yeah.
I think children have a lot more faith than adults.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Love it. I'm thinking about the idea of children making mistakes, and I get so concerned when the culture laughs at a child who makes a mistake, whereas surely they're simply trying to have a go. And as teachers, aren't we? That's what we've got to nurture and make it an applause if somebody makes a mistake.
Yeah.
Not to mock, as if there's only one answer and they've got it wrong. I find it a shame that culture can tend to squeeze you into a mold. And, when you're forming your perspective on pedagogy, which is what this course is wrestling you to do, and to articulate it, which is the final assignment, really difficult. really difficult. But these are some of the things you need to wrestle with. Otherwise, all you'll be doing is going to the factory and operating the machine. Press the button, out comes the washing machine.
Yep.
A bit boring, really. I don't think it will keep you and maintain you with your vision for Christian education or any faith education for that matter.
Yep. That was the how would I say, the early education model, one size fits all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not anymore.
Anyone else want to jump into this?
The quote that you just read said faith in the, not in, it wasn't faith in the existence of the fact, it was faith in the existence of the fact coming.
Yes.
That's a different kind of faith. It's a faith that their answers will come. And so the answers come from experimentation and making mistakes and trying things out.
Love it, Wendy. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? I'm coming up to the question I posed to you in the post last night. But let me go back to a screen again. So moving on to page 5. Yeah, here we go. This is the work of, and you'll see this on various of the slides, JBB, Jenny Bickmore Brand. And I don't know whether you know, but she's the strange. Who's doing the washing up, folks? I can hear the washing up. Jenny Bickmore Brand put this whole course together in the about 2006, 2007, 8, and she got it accredited with the authorities in Sydney at the time. She's gone and moved to Melbourne, and she's been living there since 2010, late 2010, and I took over Alpha Crucis after her. But basically, one of the things I'd love you to write down today are names of key thinkers, writers, because I want their names to pop out in your research, and not necessarily you'll take everything they say as perfect, but certainly look at them as pivotal and wrestle with them. Jenny Bickmore Brand is one of them, and she's the, if you like, the founder of this course at Alpha Crucis. She did a PhD on the teacher's transformational helix. And if I can just talk you through that for a moment, teacher's transformational helix has 4 elements to it, and I find them fascinating. Our character is being developed as we are transformed into the image of God. Now, that's a presupposition that she made, I happen to agree with, but I give you that as a reflection of me. Our character, my character, is being developed as I am being transformed into the image of God. Nargo daily, I think you pronounce it. But it's also what I'm expecting and believing and hoping for the kids in my class. So it's, in a sense, we're in this together. We're both, all of us, we're a community being transformed into the image of God. This is her model. So that's stage 1. Stage 2, once you've accepted that, if you accept that, the next discovery is that you've got a plan and a purpose for your life. And hopefully the teacher is fulfilling that. But then that's your role to reveal or help reveal plan and purpose in the children's lives. And number 3, the call to live in community as the body of Christ. So we're not isolated islands, but we are just one of many parts that make up the whole. And therefore, that's where the life comes, because we're in community, not because of who we are and what we've achieved. And once you've got 3 embedded, you can then consider, as a community, shining as a light to the whole world. And what better goal or objective could we say for 2020, when I would, and I might be getting a tad political here, but I would like to suggest the church needs to shine a bit brighter in this COVID world, because the whole narrative is COVID. Where's the answer? Where's the church worldwide giving hope? And to me, that's what Jenny's model concludes with. So I'm praying, wondering how our community might shine and give hope to the world. So that's her overarching model. Then
what
she
was her
breaks
full
it.
name, sorry?
Jenny with
Yep.
an IE.
Yep.
And then hyphenated, bit more brand. You'll
Thank
find her name on Moodle, I'm sure, in full. But thanks for asking.
No, that's okay, thank you.
Now, under the next part of page 5, you'll see that she breaks that that model, if you like. She then has a 7-fold model, which is when she talked to me about how she came up with this. She was doing this PhD, and she basically was trawling through probably thousands of books and papers written on education across the world, and she was struggling with the variety and all the manner of expressions of what is teaching, what is education, what's pedagogy, and she basically put all the concepts into one of 7 categories, which I found a really useful tool. It sort of helps me navigate my way through all this material. So number 1 is the context, which is where we're going to kick off today. Context, creating meaningful and relevant context for the transmission of knowledge, skills, and values. And when I think of context, I think of the room, the place where you are interacting with your students. You can't go and teach them and take no cognizance whatever of where they've come from. Have they had breakfast? Are they cold? Are they warm? Do they have a loving family? Do they have siblings? Etc. What's their context? You can't begin to teach unless you know the context, which means that it's really hard for me trying to teach you. And I've got some concept of you're in Brisbane, you're in Perth, etc., etc. But boy, it's hard when I aren't able to give much cognizance to your context. But it's important and incredibly important for you to know what your context is and to know what the context of the children that you're going to teach. The second point is, what's their interest? If I imagine something like an electrical cable or like a jump lead from a battery, if you can connect with their interest, the power will flow. But if you go and hit another part of the body and there's no power, you haven't got any interest, nothing's going to happen. It'll be deadpan, and it will be words, it'll be ideas with no connection to the kid's interest. Number 3, it's all very well talk about what you teach and to whom who you're teaching, but what is your life modeling? I reckon that's as important as anything else. And if you think back over your schooling, I bet you the teachers you remember are for their character, not necessarily for what they taught you. Scaffolding. Oh, such a beauty term in education. You can't give, year 12 chemistry to year 3. there's no way that you can do that. It just doesn't work. Metacognition, thinking about thinking. And this is what we're doing, I guess, a lot of at the moment, but there'll be a specific section there. Making learning, thinking about the whole process and the philosophy of, which is really relevant to the final assignment. Responsibility. I don't know whether we, as an education system, teach responsibility as much as we did. That's open for debate, but basically, you can think about that. And everybody is living in a community, and we presumably care for the needs of others, and we're not isolated islands. So those are the 7 categories that Jenny came up with, and they form the context, they form the index for all these 4 slides. The PowerPoint 1 is massive, and 2 gets smaller, 3 gets smaller, 4 is the really smallest one. But they basically work through each of those. So my question for you, as I stop sharing for a minute, is, can you talk to me about the context that you imagine you're going to teach in? Or confessions, I haven't even thought about that. As in, where on the world? Last night I was talking to a guy in Slovenia who I taught on this course in 2012. He's teaching in Slovenia now, which I find utterly fascinating. He also taught 3 years in the Cook Islands. So what context do you imagine you're going to teach in? I think I saw that hand, Karen. Except you're muted.
I haven't thought about it long term, but immediately I'm sort of, my daughter's at a Steiner school, and so I'm reading a lot about Steiner's ideas about teaching, and yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought of it more broadly than thinking in a Steiner school. People have chosen that because it's a completely different way of education. Yeah, so I'll have
so
to
what's drawn you to the idea of a Steiner school?
Because my daughter absolutely, positively hated the Anglican school she was at. And the more they tried to do things to her and make her do things, the more she rebelled, to a point where I just wrote down everything that they did and looked for the exact opposite. And I thought, okay, she hates wearing a school uniform. I find a place without a school uniform. I did exactly the opposite. The minute she was there, different child, overnight. And has been very happy ever since. We've had 12 months of successful education. In the first time since she was 5, so she's now 13. We've had 1 year of education that's been positive, and it's unbelievable. Yeah, and it just, she has a mild diagnosis of autism, and just breaking it down to 3 periods a day instead of 8 or 6, and just having that big block of 2 hours in the morning of learning. So she gets signed, and they do a 3-week block of it. So every morning this semester, she's doing music every morning for 2 hours. She's coming home, she's writing little pieces, she's taking in her instruments, she's doing music. Before that, it was science. And she'd come home and for science for 2 hours every day in the morning. And she came out knowing, I couldn't believe it. So, yeah, I just like the way they structure it. And yeah, so that's what I've been drawn to. And actually having that ability to have that period of time where you can actually get something ingrained in a child rather than sporadically producing things all the time. You know, you've got maths, then you've got French, and then you're off. Yeah. So, and also I was a neuroscientist prior to having a child. And I just know that the way the brain works, it's better to have that big period of time where you're immersed in something and then you move on. So that's where I'm coming from. But I'm prepared to change and adapt. I'm like my daughter.
That thought there makes me think about our model of intensives.
Yes.
Which for most of my time at Alpha Crucis, apart from this year, have traditionally been 5 days of intense learning together.
And
Which,
that is why I chose Alpha Crucis. When I read the spiels for all of the universities I looked at, I just thought, yes, that's the sort of thing I can fit into my timetable and would be beneficial neurologically.
yeah, yeah, it works with career changes particularly well because they can, eke out a week, but they don't have to throw their whole career away in a big chunk. So it really has worked. Someone else, your context. Talk to me about what context do you imagine you're going to teach in? Hello, Amy. Unmute yourself.
Hello. I am at the moment working in a special school, and I think that's probably where I'd like to stay. And context is important, particularly for each individual student in our classes, because they all have such diverse needs.
So what got you into the special school context in the first place?
I think it was just where I was led, really. It happened to be the job that I applied for and got straight out of school, and I loved it, and so have pursued it ever since.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what age kids have you got there?
At the moment, I'm working in the younger autism class, so we're K to 4, and all boys and all with an autism diagnosis.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Your context, do you imagine you're going to be in? Do I see a hand or not, Lindy? Yes, I do. Unmute yourself. You're muted, Lindy. Yeah,
Okay.
go for it.
Be good now? Yeah, okay. I think in terms of context, it's probably one of the aspects of education that actually will find reasonably okay. Only because my background is in counselling, so my instinct is naturally to go to the individual and go, okay, where have you been? What have you been doing? What's the story behind this very moment? And I actually think I probably struggle with the other aspect of staying on task, of going, okay, where do we move to from here? So it's trying to find that balance of context with moving forward and going, okay, this is what I've got to work with at the moment. What's where to from here? So it'll be something that I have to be very aware of, I guess, is that naturally I kind of am trained previously to just go, okay, this is what I'm working with for this person at this particular time. So yeah, it's just find that balance. I think that sort of stood out to me when you were talking. I thought, yeah, that's something that I'll need to be sort of aware of and yeah. So
I think, Lindy, what you're bringing to my mind is what is the role of a teacher?
Yep.
And again, that's the focus of the final assignment. And
Yeah,
basically, it isn't a teller of information, because if that's what it was, we could all put a tape on. And the fact that you're coming from a counselling background rings so many bells, because so many people on these courses have come from there. The synergy is just so good, good.
Right.
And it's almost a natural fit, as it were.
Yeah, well, I found that when I was doing, it was a few years ago now, but I was doing teacher's aid work, and I just naturally sort of just went into, there was one particular child, sorry, my little boy just dropped the phone. Just naturally kind of went into just that, okay, what am I working with here? And I was just, sorry, I'll just mute myself because he's just starting again. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you. Anyone else? One more. Hello, Wendy. Go for it.
I will be teaching art. So it could be all ages. But I have been doing art workshops with middle-aged people who think they can't paint, who think they can't draw. And I know that has come from something that's happened in their childhood and probably at school, where they were like, oh, my work doesn't look like the work I'm copying, so therefore I can't do it. And that's just not true. Yeah. So to come to a place of hopefully students wanting to learn, but to get through that barrier of I can't to I can.
Yeah, lovely. I'm really struck by the ones of you who've been talking you have a rationale, clear vision, if you like, for where your context can unfold. And for those of you who maybe haven't got that clarity, it would be good to sort of track back, where's this calling come from? And I would really encourage you to chat with your family and mentors and explore, and even explore the people in this group here. You know, scribble down the names of Wendy, Lindy, Karen, or anyone else that you happen to notice on these sessions here. And I think that you can get an email. If you go on the Moodle, you can find each other's emails. That, I believe that works for you. Do I see a thumb? I think it does. So basically, just, you know, if somebody has inspired you, just strike up a friendship and brainstorm together. Or if it's a more general thought, then put it on the class forum as a seed thought. You know, if you're seeking, you know, further understanding of Montessori schools, Steiner schools, of course, just Google them away. And particularly, see, nobody so far has said state school, Christian school. So can I see a show of thumbs, those of you who would imagine themselves teaching in a Christian school? I'm seeing some thumbs. Can I see some thumbs for those who imagine themselves teaching in a state school? Right, roughly 50-50, I think. It's my straw poll, thank you. I love telling this story. When people come onto this course, there's usually 50-50 of people who want to teach in a Christian school and a state school. And I won't say by the end of the course they swap, but many do. It's been a journey of struggle and heartache, but how could I, would I ever? And they eventually find themselves, actually, oh yes, I could. Well, why not? And so it's this subject is designed to, you know, strike that fire under you, to explore what is the right context. Let me just tell you a quick story from me. It'd be ridiculous for me not to. When I was training to be a teacher, finished training to be teaching in 1975 in Sheffield, Yorkshire, I was applying for jobs. And I was applying for state schools. I was a Christian, but I was applying for state schools. Bang. And my father told me to apply for an independent school, one near London, Oldham School. And I thought, what for? Anyway, just to keep him happy, I did. And it was the job I got. And I was there for 20 years. And it was an Anglican foundation school, independent, mainly boys, but it took girls eventually. 400 years old. It was an incredible experience. Was it Christian? It was more Christian than it was secular. But I would never have got there if it wasn't for this random suggestion from my father to go and apply for that job. All the other applications fell to nothing, but this one worked. And then when I came to Australia, I ended up having an interview on the phone from the Central Coast, New South Wales, to my home in England for the deputy's job at Greenpoint Christian College. And why? I don't know. And so from 1995 to now, I've been in Christian education in Australia. So the context is going to be so important. And when you write your philosophy of education, you can't write it without context. It would be totally meaningless. I mean, just imagine Karen writing her philosophy of education and not mentioning Steiner. It just isn't going to happen. And she's going to be able to articulate that very well, I suspect. Now, the challenge is, if you don't have a clear idea of your context, it's going to be hard. And yes, but you're not going to fail. That's never going to happen. The only way you fail is just by not submitting assignments, frankly. I haven't known anybody fail, just checking, through any other reason than not submitting assignments or withdrawing from the course or something. So if you just basically are disciplined and you do the job, you'll be fine. But to get the most out of it, work on that context. Oops. Okay. Good. Moving on. So page, oh dear me, I wanted to get up to page 43 today. Okay. On page 7, there's this thing, great, New South Wales Great Teaching Inspired Learning, GTIL. Now, I'll try and be careful so you can just read between my lines. It's almost as if governments have to come up with new schemes to get themselves elected. They need to try and find a gap in their educational production. And yay, we've got this new fancy, fantastic evidence-based research project, and let's all do GTIL. Now, as you can tell, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, to put it mildly. There are great things in these, but I beware you of teachers in schools who think they're the best thing since sliced bread, as if education's not been any good until now. It's been terrible till now. No, it's been very, very good until now. And yes, of course, we need to review what we're doing and grow and learn new things. As technology develops, as culture develops, of course we do. But I would rather see these initiatives as vehicles to have a ride on for a season, but not to become obsessive about, please. Don't get obsessive. Now, what do we teach? I'm skipping over and I'm going down to page 10. Time on KLAs, key learning areas, if you're not familiar with that technology yet. Time on KLAs and NESA. If you're not sure, NESA stands for New South Wales Educational Standards Authority. And when it got its name about 2 years ago, was BOSTES, Board of Studies Teacher Education Standards. The nickname for it was the Authority, because it says so in the title. But I'm telling you here, you can't call it the Authority. They get a little bit embarrassed to start calling NESA the Authority. So please call them NESA and think of them as a benevolent auntie, somebody who is going to be your support. In fact, they are, joking aside, incredibly supportive of pre-service teachers. I just can't praise them enough. Our relationship with them has been growing and growing over the years. They're super support. So go on their website, explore NESA. Even if you're not in New South Wales, have a quick look, but then of course find your state equivalent. Look, they're saying that the normal teaching is to fill 80% of a typical 9 to 3 school week, 5-day week. Therefore, they're saying 20% of the school week is for additional things such as concert rehearsal, religious education, special projects, sports days, excursions. So have a little think about that. You're not just going to teach a classroom What about the 20% that you didn't think you were going to be responsible for? You are? Yeah. And that might be on a Saturday, and it might be on a night. So not much early home time. I love this thought that English and maths should take up 50% of the school week. And I'm going to pause here and ask you for a bit of commentary. The thing is, I've found over certainly the last 2 or 3 years, it's almost as if the culture of Australia is questioning, oh, the kids have got so much to learn at school. Man, if only they would go back to the basics and learn English and maths early on, the rest would fall into place. And about a month ago, I saw this thing from New South Wales where they're going to review all the syllabus for schooling, and they're going to take a big axe and chop out loads and loads of these smaller things, so that more and more time can be given to maths and English. And in fact, if you're a primary teacher, you actually have, and we'll need to talk about this, you actually need to develop a specialization in either maths or English during your time here with us at Calvacrucis. So if you're a primary teacher, maths or English is, when we say a speciality, we'll talk about that. What does that mean? But I just throw this at you there. What should schools be doing? What about getting back to basics, maths, English? I see Carissa, go for it.
I honestly don't know that it is about getting back to basics. I think that that's more a competitive thing with other nations. I think that it's, and also I was a little bit sad because only about, I don't remember when it was, but it was pretty close to starting date of the course, maybe a week before we started. So my major's supposed to be history, and then I'm supposed to be doing geography and religion also. But then on the news in the car, I'm just rocking out to go nanny. And then I hear that Australian education is going to start cutting history. And I'm like, great. That's wonderful, because that's what I was planning on doing. But also, you know, my mom, growing up in the US, my mom was an art teacher, and, you know, that's the first thing to get cut all the time anywhere is arts and music. Just cut it out, which is terrible because, I mean, that's equivalent to cutting out anything else. But I mean, arts and music and sports, those are the three things that keep kids out of trouble, is what we know. And then they're cutting those things out, and they're wondering why, you know, the entire sort of culture of the school and community is starting to go down the pot. But I mean, cutting out history, I don't know. How much math and English can you do? And I look at the stuff my kids do, and they're all primary schoolers. And, you know, my youngest is 7 years old. He's the youngest in his class. He's in year 2, and he's doing year 4 math because he's smart. But but they're pushing him with that, and I think that's amazing. But I think honestly, one of the reasons that he has taken such an interest in math, aside from the fact that he's naturally just good that way, is because there's so much emphasis on it. So he is interested, yeah, but the school feeds it so much, which I'm not complaining about. I think it's fantastic in his case. But they feed it so much. What's happening then with kids who say aren't that great at math? And then I think about the other stuff going on in society here in the workplace in Australia. And, you know, I just got my well, sorry, I'm speaking too soon. I'm about to get awarded my PhD, and there is no place in Australia for academics. There's no place for academics. It's all tradies. And I know that I say that word with the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, but I don't care. They're tradies. and there's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, the world needs all that stuff. I'm talking too much, and Jim's giving me the timeout. He always does this to me.
Yeah. I've known Carissa for a few years. Now, you mentioned so many things I want to come back on you there over.
Okay,
But
I'm muting myself.
particularly may I emphasize the whole notion that each child is so unique, and surely it's the teacher's job to find the area where they can flourish, because once that's happening, almost the rest takes care of itself, I feel. And it may not be maths, it may not be, but it might be music, it might be art. And, you know, it's such a variety and so rich. And I was going to say to you, Carissa, yes, the news may well say we're going to cut out history. But my feeling is, and I've watched education policy come and go over many decades, I have a funny feeling there's an awful lot of weight in the universities invested in history. I can't see it going anytime soon. So yes, political parties may well get some kudos by being by saying things that tickle the ears, but let's wait and see. I think it's not going. I mean, imagine, we know Mark Hutchinson, who's the dean of my faculty. He's not going to let history go. It is here to stay. If he's got anything to do with it. Okay, anyone else? I see that, and no, I don't. All stunned mullets. Okay, moving on. Time on subjects then. Page 14, people. Page 14. Now, dropping down to 14. Authentic assessment. It's a bit of a funny word. Can I see a bit of a show of hands? Are you familiar with the term authentic assessment, or is it a newbie for you? New? Yeah, you're familiar. Okay. Authentic assessment. I just would love you to think for a moment, and maybe because of time I won't have a chat with you about it, but how do you assess a student's achievement? And the variety of potential assessment tools that you have to create. And please don't go and talk to your mentor or other teachers and say, oh, have you got some assessments? They'll say to you, well, write one then. Because it's far better if you write one for your context, that you are going to get the information you need about the student. It's supposed, to me, an assessment is one that encourages growth, encourages confidence in the student, and informs you on their progress. And if it's not doing that, it's not an effective assessment. Now, the term authentic assessment, a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. I hear so many stories of kids in schools who had to do meaningless, dreary, long-winded, forever, just working through the examples. It doesn't inspire them, it turns them off. So whatever you devise in terms of your assessment program, please make it be authentic. So that's what that's about. And models of pedagogy. Okay. Page 15. Where's 15? Oh, yeah. The word models. I was going to have a chat with you about the word models. I love that. And I hope you can use it well in your writing. Because if I can say this to you, one of the things, the main things you're going to be doing, particularly for the major assignment, is reading up on loads and loads of models of pedagogy. And you're going to be, if you like, dissecting them. What are they made of? They're made of all these different parts. Fine. Okay, I get that model now. Am I going to use it? Maybe not. Maybe I'm going to use some of it. This bit, but not that bit. So a model, to me, is a a simplification of reality. That's my definition of a model, a simplification of reality to help somebody to gain understanding. And I love the idea of bringing up models, developing models. I mean, analogy is, I would say, a useful tool within the idea of a model. I would say story is a very useful part of the term a model. What's the story of something? You could make it nice and simplistic and do it historically. In fact, this minor assignment is tracking education from after World War II up through to now. And, you know, an analogy might be a train. For example, how fast is it going? How many stations does it stop at? Who does it pick up on the way? Where's its destination? So I love the concept of models that help communicate understanding. And as I say, the major assignment, part 2, you're going to be drawing on loads and loads of models, and you'll be able to say, oh, I like that one, and this is why, and I don't like that one, and this is why. So, models of teaching, pedagogy, etc. Moving to page 28, if I may. An integral approach to Christian teaching. Now, this is a bit of work from Robert Long, and I commend Robert Long to you. He's written quite a few papers on Christian education in Australia, and I would say his approach is incredibly thorough and detailed. And if you want to dig into the origins of Christian education, look up Robert Long, and you'll find some good stuff from him. Now, have a look at what he says. The curriculum, we'll come back to that word tomorrow in more detail. The curriculum, both its content and structure, needs to be permeated with biblical perspectives and congruent with a holistic Christian worldview. Ideally, the curriculum should be developed with a concern to challenge and empower students to respond to Christ in age-appropriate ways in love and service. Now, what he's describing is this term, an integral approach to Christian education. I would say the opposite is you've got secular education with a layer of Christian jam on top. Now, I personally don't think the jam will stay there very long, and I don't think it will permeate the whole of the curriculum. So what he's trying to say is, for Christian education to be authentic, the Christian needs to be absolutely in every fiber of everything that Christian education is seeking to do. And that bit in yellow, and I will pause here because I definitely want your response. I'm intrigued to know how you're going to respond to this. But Robert Long is basically saying, my interpretation of that middle bit is that the teacher's role is to bring a student in their class to an age-appropriate response to Christ. And if that happens, or when that happens, then they change society, they change that life, and that child's ability to serve, and they change society. Now, on the back of that, yes, they learn how to read and write, and they learn how to paint, and they learn how to blow an instrument. But is that the absolute core of Christian education? In which case, if you want to teach in a Christian school, is that going to be your mantra, your purpose for getting out of bed every day? Or are you going to say, that's not for me, I'm trotting off to the state school because I believe in being a Christian, but not that.
You're presuming there's only two choices.
Thank you. Go on.
I would think of going into a state school with the purpose of taking that with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are you comfortable with that as a purpose in your life?
Short answer, yeah. It has
Okay.
to be whether you're teaching or washing the dishes or grocery shopping. You know, you representing Christ wherever you are.
Yeah. Now, I will be provocative, obviously. I remember in a school that I won't name, teachers took some kids away on a camp, beginning of the year, a good bonding time, fantastic. There happened to be a campsite by a river, and every night they had a bonfire and they sang songs around the fire. And of course, the teachers encouraged the kids, I think they were year 7, 8, to make a decision for Christ. And then, of course, well, there's water. It's summer. What hinders me from being baptized? So off they trot and go in the water and get baptized with the teachers. Did they ask the parents? No. Was there a problem? Yep. So, so it's so delicate, this whole thing. I do approve of that bit in yellow very strongly. But on the other hand, with wisdom and with utmost respect for the parents, and I would never sanction anything that wasn't with the full blessing and participation of the parents.
I think there's a skill in being covert.
What a quote. Thank you, Wendy. That has to go in the quote book. Anyone else? No? Okay. Andrew, I think you've come in, you brought your camera back and you're going to unmute yourself because I bet you've got something to say about this. Mute, yeah.
I actually haven't. I just came in and heard you to say that without the blessings of the parent, and that was it. Sorry, I
Okay.
had to go for another meeting.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for coming back.
Hmm.
We're talking about, what is the purpose of Christian education, and is it to bring kids to Christ? If that be the case, then arguably you could say, what is the purpose of the church? And I've heard it said that actually the biggest feed for churches is their schools. They're the ones doing the evangelizing, and they're producing the next generation of church, whereas the church isn't. Anyway, that's slightly cynical, but I think there might be an element of truth in that. And is that necessarily a bad thing?
No, I don't think so. I think it's good that the school can work in tandem with the church. My kids, have all gone to Christian schools, and whilst I don't expect the teachers to convert the kids, I do expect them to show them the Christian worldview of what they're learning. I think looking back at my children, they were more influenced by the youth pastors and the mentors they had at church, and kept them connected to the Christian community. And eventually, they made their decisions to follow Christ. And my son also preaches at the church now, so it's all. I think it works well. I think the school is important in the sense that I'm hoping the teachers will push that Christian worldview or give them an alternate worldview to what the secular worldview is giving them.
Sure.
And that will give them a chance to think it through. And when they come back home, I can discuss it with them
Mm,
without forcing my view, because I'm the parent. Dad doesn't know anything, at that point in time. It's like I
of
want someone
course,
else.
yeah.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. I'm conscious of the time, ladies and gentlemen. I want to go back to a couple more slides to land on a reasonable spot. So moving to page 29. Now, Norsworthy is another name that I want you to become familiar with. Her name is Beverly, or Bev Norsworthy, and she's basically my equivalent in a Christian college in New Zealand, and she is absolutely passionate about Christian education, and this is her, if you like, her signature song, Pedagogy as Person. And she's basically saying, it's a sort of mirror of that previous slide, that, and as what you were saying, Andrew, it's the modeling aspect of the teacher in front of the kids in the school that tells all, and it's the behavior rather than necessarily the words that are key. And if I may go to this one, Harro van Brommelen, Harro was his first name, died in 2014, but I would say he's probably one of the fathers of Christian education in Australia. And he's written heaps. It's so good, so thorough, so thought through. I commend his work to you. But let me leave you with this thought, the hidden curriculum, as in, you never write it down, because if you write it down, it's no longer hidden. So when you go to a school to assess its context, what you're actually doing is you're listening and you're looking to see what the hidden curriculum is that is not in the prospectus, it's not on the website. What is actually being taught here that you daren't write down, because if you do, you've blown it. Look at this one for an example. Consider these examples. History lessons may glorify heroes of war. Lessons scheduled on a Friday afternoon are not important. Teachers may have different standards and therefore one kid will play one against the other. Same can happen at Alpha Crucis with different standards of lecturers. And children may work out how to get round the tough ones. What does bullying in the playground teach the bully? All these are questions and issues related to the hidden curriculum. It's a really fascinating aspect that I would encourage you to get a hold of. And I'm going to shush there at page 31 and leave you with some final questions or comments, and we will regroup tomorrow. Anyone? Must have. Luke Callier, who's been muted and hidden all day. No. He might be driving, perhaps. Any comments? Going? Oh, Linda.
Yeah, just a question, just in regards to that last PowerPoint, the screen that you just put up. Would you class that as the culture of the school?
Well, the culture of the school. Yeah, but then you start actually writing down what that is.
Yeah, okay.
So it is, I would say, the culture of a school is a reflection of the hidden curriculum.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
I mean, if I was interviewing a new teacher, I would be interviewing them about their concept of the hidden curriculum. What are you going to bring to the classroom?
Yep.
You have not put in your application form.
Yeah, right.
Really unpack your heart, please. What's in there?
That's a good way to explain it.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Anyone else? Okay.
Sorry, Dr. Jim. I was just
Patricia.
looking on the minor assessment,
Yeah.
the minor essay.
Yeah.
What are these graduate, you know how on the bottom it's got graduate stage, like 1.1.1 and that, what's that?
Yeah. Thank you. I will go back and tell me if you're seeing what I see. Do you see hidden curriculum, Van Brumlin? Yeah?
No, no. This, hang on. This is
What are you
on
seeing?
this one here.
I may have to reshare. That was a very good question, Patricia. Thank you. Now, are you, thumbs up, please. Are you seeing Foundations, Christian Learning and Teaching?
Yes.
Yes? No, you're not. Oh, okay. I'll stop sharing and I'll share again. I think that's the trick I need to do. Now you're seeing Foundations in Christian Learning and Teaching?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, so if you go down here, and I'm just trying to find it. This is definitely the long way of finding it. Jim. No, I'm not going to find it this way quickly. So what I will do is, can you see my Google or not? You see my Google search?
Sorry?
No. No, you don't see my Google search. Okay.
No.
Okay. Here goes again. APS. Come on, Jim. Standard. APSD stands for the Australian Professional Standards Teachers. And if you go to the AITSL site, which is AITSL, but if you type in APSD standards, this is what you get. Now, this is absolute gold. This website is the most user-friendly I've ever come across. That's a bit of a big statement, but it's probably true. These professional standards for teachers, you'll notice that there's numbers like this, 1.1. Now, on the assignments, you've got 1.1.1, 3 digits. Now, the third digit is actually the final one, which refers to graduate level. So if you see, here we are on the website, undergraduate, you just simply have 1.1, but you could say that's 1.1.1. If you were under proficient, which is the standard you're going to have to be at when you're teaching, and you've graduated and you've gone to a school, that is actually 1.1.2. If you've been there a few years and you're now a highly accomplished teacher, that's 1.1.3. And if you're a department head or if you're a deputy head, you'd be 1.1.4. So you lot are at 1.1.1 standard. So everything down here, these are the standards that you have to reach to be a graduate teacher. So when you get that list of numbers at the end of an assignment, they're referring to these numbers. So look them up. If you don't know what they mean, do a bit more research and click the links and off you go. It will then give you, some of them have got videos and they explain to you in more detail what each of these standards are. There are, as you can see, there are 7. They go up to, there's loads in the early ones, and they go up to, I'm making your eyes go all crazy, sorry about that, folks. Up to number 7, 7.4 is the last one, 7.4.1. So Patricia, that's the way to go. Type in APST standards. This is the website, the first one you get. and go and explore it. Teaching standards, ever so important.
Thank
So-
you.
Get that?
All
Tricia,
good.
all good?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
No problem. I'm sorry I hadn't mentioned that earlier, but it is a pretty crucial website.
Yeah.
Okay, till tomorrow, folks.